So what we're going to be covering in today's webinar is a whole bunch around your business email. So I think there's a fundamental part around that I just want to make really clear. And then we're going to go through some of the features of Google. So what are the products that they provide? And then within those, some of the, like actually doing some of the stuff, so actually using it, and some of the things that I've found valuable for me using Workspace and some of our team. So we'll go through some of those features and some of those products. And hopefully by the end of that, you'll have some questions as well. I do encourage questions during the webinar. It's really important that if you're seeing something, I may have chosen not to go into that in depth, but if you're there thinking, oh, I like that, or I need you to replay that or do it again, please ask the question. I want to be able to be reactive to those as well. So let's try and do that. So the first screen that I've got up there, you've had plenty of time to obviously have a look at it, is firstly the plans that Google Workspace has. And the only reason I show this is because I'll be working on the standard plan. So I've actually created a couple of test accounts for a business so that we can see this live. It's not just slides. So please bear with me. But also it's important to know which plan I'm using because of some of the features that I might have. I can share this in our chat, so I'll put that in there now just in case anyone needs it. But I've got it set to the pricing for monthly, so that's if you're paying monthly. If you go to an annual commitment, then the monthly price works out at these prices, but you pay annually. So I just wanted to make sure that that was clear as well for you. And those are the same prices plus GST that Rocketspark charge, so it's not an additional cost for that. Probably the biggest thing is the storage. So on the starter plan, you get 30 gigs of storage. Standard is 2 terabytes. So yeah, 65 times more. It's a huge jump. And it's good to note that this is pooled storage per person. And so yeah, if you've got 30 gigs pooled storage per user, depending on how many users you have, then obviously you have more storage, and some can go to some users and some to others. But we find that people max out 30 gigs of data pretty quickly. You only have to have somebody in the organization for a couple of years before their email is getting pretty big. All of the standard stuff's in here, which is really great. But one thing to note, I'm going to go through a little bit of Gemini. So Gemini AI Assistant in Gmail is on starter, but Gemini AI Assistant inside docs and meetings and things is on standard. And I think that can be really important. So that's a good point to note. Video meetings are good across both, and 100 participants will usually be plenty for everyone. The key thing on standard is that you get noise cancellation and recordings of those, which is pretty important. And then coupled with Gemini AI, there's the note-taking tool, which is super useful with Google Meetings. It's taking your notes and it's summarizing the event and the meeting, and then also making points and actions, and also even who's talking and who's saying what. So we use that quite a lot as well to make sure we're keeping track of things. One that we're going to go through today is appointment bookings page, because I think that that's underutilized and is really powerful, and I even use mine today, which is good. But we won't go into the plus or enterprise options because they go into a whole nother space that we don't have time for. So let's have a look at the products. So just a real brief overview so that you can see it. And it probably just feels like, oh, this is so much stuff, but it's important to note that you have Gmail, so that's Google Mail, and you have that for your business. Now, the thing I wanted to point out here is that for most businesses, and certainly small to medium-sized businesses or brand new businesses, it's sometimes underappreciated how important a business email is. And what I mean by business email is simply just that you have an email address at your domain. So at, in this case, I'm using Alpine Builders as our test case. So it's hello@Alpine Builders, which is here, hello@alpinebuilders.co.nz. And that builds trust and confidence with people when they receive an email from you, or when they see that email address to click on to email. It does build confidence, and that's really important. To send an invoice and to know that it's coming from a legitimate source is pretty important. Also, the Gmail tool is great, and we're going to talk a little bit about how this goes across all your devices and makes life really easy. So I think that it's a great product. Obviously, very different to say the likes of Microsoft Office tools, which is quite often underutilized because of how big it is. Whereas I find with a lot of the Google Workspace tools, you're actually utilizing a lot more because it's a lot easier. Google Meet, which we're using constantly, which is important to have a Meet suite. Chat, we don't use internally because we use some other tools, but you do have the chat feature there, and I'll show you that within the doc. Calendar, which we're going to show you appointment bookings. Drive, which collects all of your data, all of your storage in the cloud. And then we've got our standards, docs, sheets, slides, which is your presentation tool. Vids is quite cool. You can actually use AI within Vids as well to create videos. Forms is probably one of the key ones that's underutilized as well. Being able to make a form, embed it into a website, or actually just send that out to people. Those forms can automatically update a spreadsheet, makes life really easy. Gemini app, to be able to know that you're getting the top quality AI from Google within your Google Workspace plan and not having to pay another plan certainly makes the pricing look better when you think of the likes of other products as well. So I think that's important too. Keep, I don't tend to use, but it's like a pin board of things. It's an organizational tool. Tasks I use, and I'll hopefully be able to show you that as well. And then knowing that all the security is there is important. So the first thing I was going to say, we've got our Google Mail or our Gmail, and we've all used this. Oh, nice. I said that somebody's really keen to learn about forms, and I will definitely get there. Please remind me if we're struggling for that, but we will go through it. I'll even open it up so that we know too. What I love about Google as well is that I know that everything is whatever the product is .google.com. So that's really easy. So we've got our inbox here, we've got our mail, and all I really want to show you here is that you do have a lot of features. I think some people think, oh, I've got Gmail personally. What about it? It just has emails, but this does have all of your tools in it. And if you go to all your settings, you will be able to do anything you normally would. Probably the key one is to set up an auto reply for when you're out of the office. Being able to schedule that by date is really important. Your signatures, and you can have multiple signatures, so you can change those at an email, but also have your default. There's also filtering and forwarding. So if you want to forward to another folder or want to forward emails to people, you can do it. You can even send emails as another account. So you can add other accounts to your Gmail so that you can send and receive from different emails and have them all in the one if that's helpful for you, and even check emails from other accounts. So there is a lot in here. So please just check it out if you don't feel like you're getting the most out of it. But as I said, I use this on a daily basis, and so does our team, and we all use it in the browser more often than not. I've used Apple Mail, for instance, and haven't changed over. All right, so now we come to our calendar, and if I've got all that right. So I've got nothing in here. I've put a meeting to show you something shortly, but yeah, our calendar is really powerful. We can have multiple calendars. I can create new calendars. So I can add another calendar and can just create a sub calendar. So I have one for like our customer success team and support about who's rostered on, and we can see that overlaid with other calendars. We also have like a leave calendar, and then we have like an events calendar too. So you can have any number of those calendars, and you can also create shared calendars within your team. So our team roster one is obviously shared, and there's different permissions that people can have with those shared calendars, which is quite cool. There's a whole bunch of settings with calendars too, and we do this with websites a little bit, but you can actually embed your calendar or one of your calendars into like a website and show that calendar. And it means that you can maintain a calendar, and it could be for events. I've seen it done by schools quite a lot, or it might be, just events that you've got coming up. So having a separate calendar where you collate all of those and be able to publish that on your website or somewhere else can be really important. But you've got a whole bunch of settings here. One of the key ones in the settings is actually creating your locations. And so at the top here above this line, we can actually add the location and where we're working or not. And so we can say that, for this day, I'm choosing the location that I'm going to be at as home. And then when somebody tries to invite you to a meeting from your organization, they can see whether you're working from home or in the office, and then they can choose whether they want to book that meeting at that time or not. And you can set that up as a standard. So it might be that I work from home every Wednesday, and you can absolutely set that up. Even things like setting up your week view. So I quite often, for work purposes, don't show the weekends in my week view. So I clicked on the week up here and I untoggled show weekends. And I also don't show declined events and things like that. But that means that I just get a cleaner view of my calendar and it makes it easier to use. So I'm probably talking too much about calendars. It's pretty straightforward. But the one I want to get into is being able to add an appointment schedule. And so on the left here where you've got create, we've got event, which is very standard. We've gone through where our locations are, but we've got out of office too. So quite often when you book like your leave in, you can actually put it as an out of office. And what can be really helpful with that is that you can decline new meetings automatically and put a message so that if somebody invites you, that it automatically does that. So that's quite powerful as well. And so then we've got the appointment schedule. So when I click on this, we're going to just go through this quickly so that we can see how to set this up and the value that it can create. And again, this can be embedded into a website or shared with people as a link. So I'm going to say that I'm going to make a 30-minute, well, actually, I'm going to make a 15-minute consultation appointment. So consult, we're going to call it. And I'm only going to do it Monday to Friday. And I'm going to change my times to be 9:30 to 4:30, and then I can copy those across all dates. So hopefully that's not too hard to see there. And that allows me to book those schedules in, obviously the time zone. And then I can do my scheduling window. So I can say that there's a certain period that this is going to be available for. But the key one for me is how many days in advance they can book. And I tend to make that only 2 or 3 weeks. So I'm going to say 21 days in advance. And this is probably the most important, that they can't book within 18 hours, for instance. And that just means that I'm not going to get stung with a meeting that appears this afternoon when I wasn't prepared for that, which can be quite scary. You can adjust the availability of specific days too. So instead of having to put your calendar out on a public holiday, you could put them in. But I tend to just make sure that my calendar is up to date and working. Booking appointment settings. So you can create a buffer time between appointments. This is only for the appointments through the appointment schedule, but it just means that if you're trying to get lots, I might put a 15-minute buffer time between each so that I just have a little bit of time between the next person if another person books. And you can also say that there's a maximum number of bookings per day, which I think is pretty important too if you're just trying to balance your workload. This one I really like, which is around your calendars. So I only have the one calendar here, but at work, I actually have like a personal Gmail calendar and I have a work calendar. And sometimes there's things in my personal calendar that I block out that I haven't put in my work calendar necessarily. But I wanted to review both of those calendars before accepting a booking. And so I actually have both of those calendars selected. You might be using it if you were to set up meeting rooms. So you can have meeting rooms as part of your calendar that you can book as a team. So you might say, I'd like to only accept a meeting if I'm available, but also this meeting room's available so that I can then always make sure I can book it. So I think that's pretty important as well. You can also add co-hosts, but that's not really neither here nor there. So then if we go to the next page, what we get is the booking page photo and name. So this will match your profile, your Google Workspace profile, so you can edit that. The location of the meeting. So you might say, actually, these 15-minute meetings are always going to be virtual. So I'm going to add the Google Meet video conferencing link straight in there. And then it's also going to present that to people. I can then put a description. Hi, thanks for connecting, etc., etc., etc. And you'll see where that shows. And then there's a booking form. And I love this because by default, you need to collect their first name, last name, and email. But you might add a field, a custom field to say, what would you like to talk about? Or there could be a bunch of other questions. I'm going to say that's required, and I'm going to add that as well. That'll all come in the booking invite to you. You also have, email verification I would turn on, payments and cancellation policy. So if you want to charge for these and you have a Stripe account, you can either get a Stripe account if you don't, but you can actually charge for these meetings for people to book them. So if it's part of your business and you charge for like a consultation or something, then you can actually do that in here as well. And then booking reminders at the bottom. So there's always going to be the calendar invitation that's sent out to everybody, but you can actually send a reminder email. So I always tend to do one a day before, but I also sometimes like to add one an hour before. And then that way, it just means that people are getting reminded. And if they can't make it or they're going to cancel, then hopefully they do cancel so that you're not sitting there waiting for somebody at the end. So I'm going to save that, and you'll see that that is now being added to my calendar across every day from now onwards. And it sits behind all your other calendar appointments, as you can see here. But what you can do now is you can click on that and we can share it. So we can click on share, we can copy the link, we can embed it into our website. And if we have a look at what that looks like, here we go. This is how other people will see it. So what they can see when they come in is they can see the message we've got, they can see the title, it's a 15-minute appointment via Google Meet, and then they can see all of the available time slots that they can go through, and then they can click along, and then they can click on one of those times, fill in the form that we just created, and book that. As soon as they book it, you will receive an email confirming that booking and with all their details as well, so that you can then prepare for that meeting. So I don't know, I'd be really interested to know, because I know I've just spent 5 minutes on that, if that is interesting for people. Maybe just a reaction. Is that a tool that they think they might use, or that could be of value to them? It'd be kind of interesting to hear. Yeah, cool. The other thing too is that I have multiple of these, so I'll try and do this one really quickly without kind of fussing about it too much. But so I put a 15-minute one, but I've got a 30-minute one now, and I'm just going to go next and save. So now I've got 2 meeting schedules, and when I share this link, I can actually make it for all booking pages. And so if we preview what that looks like, you actually get this starting point where you get the choice, and you could call it consult 15 minutes or consult 30 minutes, something like that. And then that way you're giving the person this choice to say, we shouldn't just default to 30 minutes. If they just want a really quick catch up, let them book 15 minutes. And then that way we know the intent, and then we don't have to have our calendar booked out so much. So I actually have both of those set up for myself, which is pretty important. All right, so what I wanted to have a quick look at here is also, and I'm not too sure how this will work, but I'm going to join this meeting with Google Meet, and I'm going to need to make sure that I mute some of these things once. And I'm going to need to mute my computer, make sure that's all done. And so we can see we can join this now. Now I've got another user, which is in this setup, which I'm also going to open up. And there's a brand new account, so it's a little bit tricky, but it's fine. And let's join this. Cool. So we can see here that we've got our Google Meet set up, and we've got both people. Obviously, I don't have my cameras on there, but we can see that Gemini here is taking notes for the meeting. So you can set that as a standard, and then you can choose a whole bunch of options for it, and you can say start taking notes, which I think is really valuable. Really good also to be able to record your meetings. So you can actually come down the bottom here, and there's a few different things like recordings, Q&As, polls. We record each of our weekly team meetings in here, so that if anyone's missing, they can go and watch the recording. It's automatically saved into your Google Drive, and it's just really easy then for people to be able to come through. Those transcripts, which is what's captured by Gemini, again, really powerful and easy to set up and easy to have going. And you can actually already have it on those scheduled meetings as well. So it may seem like quite a simple tool, and it is. I guess we use a lot of meeting tools, but when it's included in your package, why not use it, especially if it's really powerful, and there's a lot of good functions with it as well. So I won't go into that anymore, just cancel those. All right, cool. I'm just going to quickly check this question. Yeah, perfect. Good question. So when you collate those notes, either doing a recording or the notes, the organizer of the meeting will receive an email confirmation at when the recording's finished processing, and that will be in the owner's, the meeting organizer's Google Drive, and there'll be a folder called recordings or transcripts for that, and you'll be able to access it there. Anyone who was in the meeting, if you have this set up right within your organization, will also be able to access that meeting recording from this meeting. There'll be a link that's added to that path, so where that recording is, and then they'll be able to go and watch it. If somebody was in the meeting but didn't attend, they won't. You'll have to give them access. So it's quite strict around who can actually view that recording. It's only people that were there that accepted that they knew that it was being recorded. So I think that's quite good as well. All right, so let's move on. Hopefully that's answered the question, and if there's any more, please let me know. But I wanted to have a quick look at Google Docs. I think that, again, we're probably used to Word, and we think, oh, that's amazing, we can do everything under the sun, and that's pretty cool. But what I want to show you here is that, like, Google Docs is actually super powerful, and I actually find it really easy to work with, and it makes things faster. So I've just added some things in here, and I've got a random example of a book review I did, just so that we can see some things working. So for me, one of the key things is that right now, myself and also this test user are in this document, and we can see their red cursor, and we can also see them at the top here. I can actually start a chat with that person, and I can say, hi, test, for instance. And then if I go over to their one, there was a Carlos says, and we can see the chat there, and we can actually collaborate on this document with an internal chat at the same time, which I think is kind of powerful. The other things that we can do in here, which I really like, is commenting. So we use this like constantly for collaboration on documents, and quite often we'll have multiple people collaborating at the same time, which again, we can see that test user icon pop up there, and I can see where they are. But we also have the chat, or the commenting, which is not, unheard of, but I really like what the function of how this works. So we can add a comment to the one there and say, hi at test, so they're within our organization, so they appear, and I can actually assign this to them as a task, and say, hey, you need to do this, or you haven't reviewed this, please review it and confirm. That's going to be in the document, but they're also going to receive a notification here about an update to that document, and with a task for them. So it's all integrated and all works seamlessly through the Workspace tool. The other thing that we really like when using this is the suggesting mode. So you can set this up so people can't be editors, and then they can only suggest. And this is kind of like show changes, I guess it was kind of called. So we might say, actually, we don't want this to be called heading 2. I want this to be called, this is my heading. I like it. And so it's showing us the change, and it's giving us a record of that change in the commenting here. And then when we go to another user that's viewing this, they can actually see that commenting and that change. And depending on their access, they can accept the suggestion. And so I might have created that change, and then I might say in that change at test, please review and accept if okay. And then I can reply. And then we can see on this other user, now they've got this, it's a sign, they can review it. They accept it. It automatically removes what was deleted and accepts what was changed, and that's automatically updated on my side. Hopefully that's come across how I thought it would. I was trying to think how we could do that live, but really powerful. And when you start getting a busy document, or you're collaborating on something quite intense with a group of people, I find that can be really helpful. I'm getting a couple of beeps, but I don't know if that's no more questions that I see there, so that's okay. The other things I like in here is that we've got document tabs. And so when we go through tabs, you can actually see at the bottom that it's now taking us to the next tab. And this can be quite powerful if you've got like a whole bunch of information, kind of like a website, and you might have different pages on the website. You can have different tabs. But you can also see that our heading styles here have created like this hierarchy on the side to make it really easy to say, oh, I want to review this part, so I'm going to go to that part, and being able to navigate that document really easily. You can also insert a contents page, which will continue to build out as you add headings. So that hierarchy is kind of built through the whole thing as well. Now what I want to have a quick look at is some things that I think are kind of interesting. that people maybe, I'm not sure. It'd be interesting to know if people are using AI a lot, but knowing that we've got Gemini within our tools now, we actually have the ability to do a bunch more here. So I'm going to go to this random example page. This was actually written by Gemini in this document, but now I have some things that I can do. So I could say insert, and then I'm going to go to building blocks. So I'm going to show you a few things in building blocks that I really like, but like the first one here is an AI summary, and it's kind of interesting. I can put that in here, whoops, and it's now summarized this whole document. And you might say, well, that's perfect. I just want to add a summary at the beginning of this huge document so that people can see that. And so I can now add that. Oh, I've got to change myself to editing. I'll accept that. And that's there now. Now, if I go and change this document, we can actually refresh that summary and it'll write us a new summary for that document. And that can continue to happen as this document evolves as well. Let's have a look at a couple of the other things. So I quite often use like the Google Docs for collaborating with my team or doing one-on-one meetings and so on. And so there's a whole bunch you can do in here with those building blocks. And you can actually see there's like meeting notes, and these are basically like macros or kind of templated content that you can put there, but you can also create your own custom building block. So I might say that in this particular meeting, I want to insert a table. And so I've put a table there, and it's got task, owner, date, percentage complete, something like that. And then I might put stuff in here. So I'm going to say, actually, I want this to be saved as my building block. And so, except I've gone to the wrong place. Building blocks, and then I can say custom building block, and I'm going to say new custom building block, select content you'd like to save. So I can then highlight that content and go save, and then I can name this as task table and create. Cool. So now that I've got that, anytime I'm in a doc, and it doesn't matter which doc I'm in as the user, I now have this. So if I go at, and then I type task, I can see that there's building blocks here. And I had a task table. And if I click on that, it then puts that in. So I have some templated stuff that I have as building blocks that I can then always add into documents and save myself time with that. So there's a bunch of ones that are there by default, but there's heaps that you can also utilize. Smart clips are really great too. It makes your document sort of pop and makes it far easier to use. So things like having a default date in there, so that you can then just change it. And all you do is just click on that to change the date, and you can change the time zone. So there's a whole bunch in here, but again, sometimes you need to look for it or know that it's there. You can put a voting button, a place. When you put in an owner of something, so I could say at test, which is a person in my organization, it's now added a smart tool for them as a user instead of it just being their name. So yeah, quite kind of intense how this can be used and done a lot more. I'm just making sure building blocks. Oh, one other thing that I really like, and I need to join the Google Meet again. So I get to it. Cool. All right, so when I join a Google Meet, whenever I'm working or collaborating on a document with somebody, you have this option. So we've got Google Meet, and you can say, you can see it's done a pop-up in the bottom corner here for me. So that's got the Google Meet, and it'll have a sort of a summarized version of people's pictures and so on. And it can be a little bit hard to see, especially if I've gone full screen and this might be over top of the document a little bit or covering these comments, and then I'm kind of having to move it. So what I really like to do is at the top here, we've got this camera icon. And what we can do is we can actually bring the call into our document. And so by doing that, we didn't have to change anything or leave the meeting, nothing like that. But I'm the only one here. Let's just join it with this other person to maybe make it a little bit more. Powerful. Let's get those closed. All right. So now we can see that we've got that test user, my images down the bottom. I have all of those functions to be able to screen share if I want and do everything that I need. It's all right there, and none of it's going to take over the doc. Even if I start narrowing this down, I still have the full view of everything, but the meeting is still captured within this doc. And I just find that far easier to use if I'm specifically working on something. And you can always pop it back out and you'll go into a full tab again. So let's just cancel those, and then we can come back to our document. So I think that's all I kind of had for, because I know we're short, not going to be much time for this, but if there's any question about Google Docs or something that you are looking to do with there, because there is so much more, please let me know. But hopefully, you know, creating the tabs, creating the heading hierarchy, using those building blocks, saving them as well, and using those smart features, those smart clips, will at least get things going. And then the collaboration, which I think is the most important. All right, so let's have a quick look at Sheets now. So Sheets is just like a spreadsheet. It's no different. When I first started using Workspace, I thought, oh, this is quite simple. But effectively, anything that you can do that you've probably experienced in Excel, not everything, but a lot of things you can. You still have full formula functionality, which I think is really good. And you can do, there's some things that I find easier. Being able to freeze the top row by just being able to drag from the top is far easier in my view than what I've seen with others. And so that makes it there. You can even drag that down to be the first 3 rows if you want. And then you can also do a crossways as well. So those, oh, that's not the right one. Sorry, let's get this right. So yeah, most of the functionality you would find would be there. But there's some really cool things with Google that you get with the Gemini tool as well, which again, I know people are probably like, oh, AI overload. But I was doing some things today that I found really interesting. And there's something in here where you can use AI. So you can go equals AI brackets, and then you can write a prompt. So let's just say, let's have a, I want to take the stage column, and I'm going to call that E. E. Sorry, I just need to put inverted columns here. E, and categorize the basic stage of the build. This is a building company. So it would be like start, I don't know, I'm just going to do it simple, and start, middle, and end. And then you can choose different things to look at. So you can say that I want it to be specifically only E2, and then I can enter. And now AI is going to go away, like do this, and it's categorized this part of the process as the start. And then I can drag that down. And actually, I've probably done a few too many there. But as we go through, it's now categorizing all of these stages. And I did this with like some customer feedback and things. And just being able to do something within your document can be really helpful. The other thing I did, and you know, I think I'm okay with formulas, but I know that sometimes they get me. So for instance, we've got AB-001. So if I go AI, take the value in column A and only return the number at the end. So that's kind of quite a tricky, I think, formula for most people to do. So it's an A2. I'm going to close that. So if we do that, now I've got that. And all of a sudden, I take this down and it's going to start generating the cells, and it's done that for me. And what's quite cool is that this can update. So if I update this number here to be 33, it's now gone purple, and I can generate an insert. And so now it's updated that to 33. So I can live and breathe there as well. So I find that quite powerful. And there's some other cool things, like when you click on that, and I actually already did this, but you can choose to summarize the document. And so we can see here that it's taken that and it said, great, the distribution of project statuses. The one in this that I really liked was the average completion percentage by project manager. And so it's showing who's got the highest completion rate, and then it's giving us a summary. So being able to take just some raw data and then being able to get a tool without having to export it and put it into something else is really powerful. The other thing that I quite like is that, and I'm only getting used to this, is converting these to a table. And so if I convert this to a table, you'll see we get a bunch of sort of new options. I'm just going to undo that and only select the data that I've got just to make this a bit easier. Actually, I can probably just do it with these rows here. So I'm just right clicking and that's not quite right. I must have to select the whole thing. Sorry. There we go. Convert to a table. And sometimes you think, oh, it's just to look pretty, or it's just to make it, you know, different. But what's great about a table is that we can actually create different views within the table. And so we can have like, I guess, an owner view, and where now we've got that different view, and we can see that temporary group by owner, and we can undo it, or we can do it again, and create new group views and other views as well. Refresh that view. So now we can see that this is all done in that way. I'm just going back. There we go. And then it's automatically sorted for us. So we have all of our sort functions in here as well. We've got the analyze the data. We can actually name this table as well, and then we can have other options there too. And it does make this a little bit easier to work on. The only thing I would say now is that what we can do in here is we can actually insert a like a drop down. And so now we've got the drop downs, and you can see it's automatically done it for us. And so now we've got in progress, delayed, not started, and completed. So I didn't do that. It wasn't something I prepared earlier. It just knew that that was what's in that column. And now we've got a really easy way for people to be able to do it. We can also change this. So we could say delayed is red and not started is yellow, completed is green, etc. And then we'll be able to get these all updated. Oh, sorry, done. And now they've all updated. So it's now making that a lot easier to read and manage. All right, let's keep going quickly. I'm going to go to Google Forms because I think that's going to be a good one as well. So in Google Forms, all we need to do is go add a blank form. Is probably the easiest way to get started. You can use Gemini to try and create the form for you as well. Give it a description about what you're trying to do. But this is pretty straightforward. But I will show you a couple of things. Obviously, this is a form to collate information. Question 1, and then we get options. So we've got multiple choice. We've got a whole bunch here, ratings, linear scales, dates, time. So it can be somebody filling in when they would like to do something. So we can have multiple choice, and we can say yes, and then we can add another option and say no. We can say it's required. All the normal stuff you would find in a form. But what I quite like is that you can also add a section. And so in this section, we could say this is question 2. No, sorry, this is the section. So it could be like contact details, for instance. And then we're going to add a question in here, name, and that's going to be a short answer, so just where they can fill that in. But what we can do at each section is we can actually create that conditional logic. So we can say that in this question, if I get this right, go to section based on answer. So we can say that if somebody says yes, then we want to take them to contact details. Whereas if they say no, we could take them to the section after content details. And that's just making things a little bit easier for the person that's filling out, or only showing people questions they need to complete if they are need to. So obviously you can work through that, and now you've seen that. But the other cool things that you can do are obviously change your theme. So you can add an image at the top. You can change the font and the basic colors and things. It's still pretty basic, but you can do that. One of the things I would suggest is also, which I can't see it here because this isn't mine, is that you've got get add-ons. And so there's some cool things you can do if you want to be notified about whenever somebody fills in the form or anything else that's a little bit more tricky. But ultimately, you've got your responses area. And the thing that I like here is that you can link to a sheet. So as soon as we do that, we can say this is our untitled form responses, and we can go create. And now it's opening us that, and it's created one of those nice tables for us. And actually, you've got the conditional notifications here too. So every time one's added, you can get notified that way if you like. But what we can then do is we can actually say, well, let's copy the responder link. We'll just do it in this other profile. That's not the link that I copied. Copy. I wonder if I've, sorry, I'm just going to publish the form. Perfect. So I'm going to say yes, next. Because I said yes, it took me here. I can fill that in and I can go submit. So now that I've done that, when we come back here, we can see that straight away in our spreadsheet, it's collated that. And every time somebody adds, it'll add another entry in there. We also get the responses here within forms so that we can review those responses, and it will give us tables and different types of charts depending on the question so that we can see and collate that. Obviously, one of the key things for me is using the spreadsheet because then I can manipulate that data as I'd like. And then you've got a bunch of different settings that you might apply to this as well. Looking at the publish thing just as well, at the moment I've got this set to only people within Alpine Builders, but you can obviously change that to make it public. But it's nice to know that you can make a form private as well, that nobody else can actually access that. Yeah, really good. So that was kind of that question. You can choose those publish rights about who has it. So we can manage this just like any sharing within the Google Workspace suite. You have these same settings. So you can say that general access is editor review is restricted, so no one else. Responders, only Alpine Builders. But you can actually say this is restricted, and then you're only going to share it with individual people. So I'm going to go that, and then I can notify them, or I can just copy the link and share, and they can be a responder or an editor based on those selections. And that's no different to anywhere else. And I'll show you that in a moment in Drive if people have still got time, because I know that I'm kind of at time. And then the last thing for this is being able to actually embed this form. So being able to just take this here, copy in that HTML and putting that into your website using a code block. If you're using Rocketspark or whatever it might be called, you'll be able to put that in, and then this form will be there for anyone visiting your site to complete. You'll get the spreadsheet filled out, you'll get the collation of the information as well. If you need any help with this part, because there can be some things around width and height, especially if you want mobile view, we would help you to adjust that slightly to make it a bit more responsive, because that's not actually that responsive right now. Hopefully, I forgot whose question it was, that helps to answer forms a little bit. But again, more than happy to answer any more questions that come through and go through as well. I'm just going to quickly touch, I know we're at time, so I understand if people do need to leave. I'm just going to have a look. So I wanted to just quickly show you Drive and that sharing. I had Google Slides there as well, just around presentations. We've done the appointment scheduling. And I just wanted to touch on, I'll do this really quickly now, but with Google, it's really important that you set up two-factor authentication. If you go to when you're logged in, if you go to your icon in the top right corner, I'm not sure why mine's taking so long. I've probably got too many open. And go manage your Google account. This will give you the full access to manage everything. Really important to go through this, but data and not data and privacy, security will show you all the options. And at the moment, by default, two-factor authentication is off. If you haven't got that on, please go and do it. It's really important that nobody else can log into your business workspace account, especially when you've seen what you can do in there. It's important to have that. That way, you're going to get a text message or have to use an authenticator app And if somebody tried to log into your account from a remote location, it just means you're going to get prompted. You're going to say no. So I would set that up, maybe set up a couple of options. Definitely set up a recovery phone number and a recovery email. Obviously, if the account's with Rocketspark, you can come through to us and we can support you with these things and verify you and so on. But yeah, you've got a whole bunch of sign-in options, and this is really important for your business to make sure that you're safe and secure. So I would recommend doing that. And then just make sure yeah. So the last thing I kind of wanted to go through, and before I finished off, was Drive. So we've got docs, and we can click on the document in the top corner and we can see our docs, and this will give us like a home of just docs. And the same thing with Sheets. We can go back to that top corner and we can do Sheets. Also quite cool, if you don't know this little tip, if you type docs.new, it'll actually just straight away open up a new document, and that works for all of the tools. So sheets.new, it'll just open up a brand new, you don't have to go to a page and then click plus or do something again, which I quite like. So those all there, but then Google Drive is the home of everything. And this can be really great when you're sharing things. So because we're a business, we've got shared drives. So we can create shared drives and we can have permissions within these shared drives. So let's have a look. Shared drives. Sorry, create a shared drive, and I'm going to call this builds for my building company. Cool. And so that's now in here, and we can see that we want to no, we don't want to hide it. But now that's within our organization. Let me just double check if this has come through here. But drive.google.com. Shared drives. Oh, and I haven't shared that properly. It's probably the problem. Yeah. Builds. Oh. Sorry, shared drive settings. I was looking for that and just couldn't find it. So we can see allow people outside of builders to access the files. No. We can set all of this up so that we can then make sure that people within our organization have it, or only select people within our organization. There's a lot of functionality there, and it can be a great resource to not have to then be sharing drives that are in your own folder, or worrying about when somebody might leave the organization and how that might work. Although when somebody leaves the organization, it's really easy to, when you delete that user, to say I want all of their content to go to this user. So that's really helpful. But when we look through my drive, we've got all of these things here. I've got custom building blocks. This is, those we created a custom building blocks. These are all saved in a folder automatically. And then we've got it. We can click on any of these documents, and we've got all of our share options. Obviously, you can change your view. I've shared this with Test. I can say that they are an editor, or I can actually change their view. We can add an expiration date. We can even transfer ownership. But I can see that also general access is for anyone in my organization as a viewer, but I can actually restrict that or open that link up wider as well. So there's a whole bunch of sharing and functionality within all of your documentation and all of your drive settings that you'll be able to use within your organization broader than one person. I love that everyone's still there, because I've really underestimated some of the time on this, and it might be because I'm excited, but hopefully it's still of interest to you. I just wanted to lastly sort of show you something that you can do with aliases. So I don't know if everyone knows this, but we've now set up mail.google.com, and we might say, well, actually, I really want a professional email for invoicing. So I want accounts@alpinebuilders.co.nz, but I don't want to pay for another license. I just want to receive those emails to me. And you can definitely do that. So you can get aliases created for your Google account. Probably something I won't go into full length here, but you have your admin console and you have access to your users as the owner of this. So whoever's the super admin user, and you can actually come through here and create aliases, and you can have any number of those. So you could say, I've got accounts at, or I'm going to have a form that sends the form submission to inquiries at, and then that way, when it comes into your inbox, you'll see those different two email addresses, and you'll see that it's for those things. And it also just helps people to feel like, oh, this is really professional. I'm emailing the accounts team and that can be quite useful. So if anyone's stuck on that, please let us know. Come through to support@rocketspark.com and ask us about it. We can help set those up as well. That's super easy. Just remember, they always go to an inbox. So not good if you're wanting somebody to log in separately, but great if you just want another email address, which is important. Yeah, I was going to show slides, which is the webinar, the presentation software, and it's like any other that you've probably seen. There's things like transitions and backgrounds and templates and so on. It's very easy to add slides and duplicate slides, but I kind of just wanted to show that there's some really powerful stuff in here. So we can generate an image with Gemini as well, and great that it saved this, but I put one here: create an image of a person, Carlos, working with Google Workspace Office suite of tools. They are represented by the icons of the different tools, and Carlos is a cartoon character who is casual, working for a software company. And so it created these options for me, and then I get a few to go and have a look through, and I don't think, probably this one, for instance. Now I can insert that in my presentation, and it's that easy. But there's some other cool things here. I really like, depending on what your purpose is you can actually add a speaker spotlight, and let's just do it with this one. And what's cool about this is that when you're presenting this, which I think this will work. Let's have a look. Hopefully this doesn't ruin my camera, but I'll use this one. So there you can see that when I'm presenting this, it actually has a camera view of me as well, which is using a different camera. But you can actually add those on different slides or not have them on specific slides. And that can actually really elevate the presentation that you're doing there, especially if it's remote. And then you've got a whole bunch of things. They've got a whole new suite of templates, which is really powerful. Building blocks I really like, kind of like building a website. But you know, like when you're building a slideshow and you're kind of like, oh, this is not really looking right. To be able to have these building blocks and then to be able to adjust those and get them looking how you want is quite cool. And then there's also their stock photos tools where you can search for stock photos and add those to your presentation as well. And the last one is being able to record the slideshow. So if you're looking to kind of say, like, I'm doing this webinar, I might want to do this as recorded content, or I might have a presentation on a product that we sell. You can actually build this out, and then you can use the record slideshow. And when you do that, it's going to present the slideshow, and now it's recording the slideshow, and we can go through the slides. If I had my camera picture there, it would all be there. If I had notes, they'd be on this page for me to view. But now I've done that, and I've now got a recording of this slideshow that I can then download, save, share with other people. I wonder if that's gone to my drive yet or not. Probably not yet, but it will come eventually. So yes, I think I've probably gone through enough, but some of the use cases here as well is that if you're wanting to gather feedback, you can use Google Forms. If you need to get stuff submitted, you can do it. Think of that collaboration and challenge yourself, if you're not doing that now, to use it. It's so simple to be able to go into a doc and say, I've written this out. What do you think? You know, do this, click it here, at so-and-so. What do you think? Can you have a look at it? Let's edit this. I've given you suggestion functionality. Let's do that. Client meetings, so obviously using Google Meet, but also that appointment schedule. So what I used to do is I'd have to send an email saying, oh, I'm free on Wednesday afternoon, Thursday morning, and Friday afternoon. And then the person would say, great, I'm going to book you on Friday morning. And you're like, oh no, I meant afternoon. And then they'd book at 12. And I was like, oh, actually, I'm only free from 2:30. With the appointment schedule, it just means that I can send and say, book anytime that suits you. I know it's set up right. I know it's working. Obviously, I've become a lot better at making sure I've got like a lunch break scheduled into my calendar regularly so that I don't get back to back to back all day. And also just make sure that I've given myself good buffers if I need to in meetings. But it's really good. It saves all that backwards and forwards. Looks super professional as well, I think, which is important for business. Keeping a track of your jobs or your orders or anything, again, Google Sheets. And this just works. You'll just create these documents. They're always saved. Everything's in here and it's all searchable. Actually, another really great tool is being able to search for something. So if I not search for something, but if I've been to it, I can actually come into Chrome, and then here you'll see it's got like history information, but I can actually type Alpine, and you'll see that it's bringing up some of the things that I've already looked at. And so when I type Alpine underscore, because I know that's the name, my Google Sheet is already here. So I don't actually have to go into Google Sheets to here, then go into the search to try and find it. I can actually just open up my tab and start writing what it is. And sometimes I'll be like, I've forgotten what that document's called. I think it's called Alpine something or other, and there it is. And it just makes life super easy. And it means that those documents and things are just easy to find. But yeah, using Sheets, I would challenge yourself to, again, comment in the sheet if that's what you want to do. I didn't actually show that, but it's simple. You just click on a thing, a space, and then you can insert a comment. You can add people in here. You can assign them those tasks. This is even suggesting that you can get approvals, which I love as well. Just didn't have time to go through. And I've talked about that sign-in. Oh no, I talked about the security two-factor authentication, but also it's really good practice, and this is probably going a bit outside, that if you're wanting to sign up for something, so if I go to a tool and I want to sign up, you should always use continue with Google if it's available. If you've got your two-factor authentication up and you've got a good strong password, which you should have, it shouldn't be something easy for somebody to guess, then use this. Use the continue with Google for your business. It'll make sure that you've got that added layer of security for all of the other tools that you're using, so that you're not going to get hacked via one of these, or somebody else is going to get access to it. And so our recommendation is to actually use that as much as you can. Because if you just put an email and password, that can be just that. This company may not even have two-factor authentication, and maybe it does, I'm not sure, but you're making sure that you do. And then therefore, if somebody clicks on this and they're not already set up with Google, it's going to say you need to do your two-factor authentication. So I would take that on board too. I don't see any other questions, but yeah, I appreciate that people have still stayed on. My recap really is, hopefully that's showing you a little bit more, and it's given you an insight into some of the tools and how they can work for business and how they can work for you or your customers, and that there's so much in there that's going to be going to give you so much more productivity and make things better for you. I would test out the tools, even if it's just one a week, or like I said, when you get a pop-up, try it. Have a look at it. What does it do? It's usually super simple. Cool, make a request. I haven't actually done this, but add approvers. So I'm going to say that, at tests maybe, yeah, and then send, oh, there we go. Add test is going to be the approver in this. There's a due date for the approval. Really cool stuff, and there'll be different use cases. So yeah, I'm open to any questions. I'm happy to stay around for a couple more minutes if that's helpful for anyone, if they've got something specific. There's a survey at the end of the webinar. Please, it's only a couple of questions, I think 5 questions. If you could answer that, it'll help us to know whether we're on the right track. It is formulating what webinars and educational content we do in the future. So, it is being used. Yeah, please find us on the next one. Please go to Customer Webinars page, look out on the newsletter, and yeah, we hope to see you at the next one. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.